It was 04:30 when Sergeant Garrett marched into the barracks, his boots echoing off the cold, hard floor. "All right, maggots, up and at 'em." The usual roar cracked the silence of the early morning, but there was something about his voice today, something colder, more cutting. He stopped in front of Private Tyler Marshall's bunk. Tyler had just rolled out of bed, his hands still shaking from the nightmare he couldn't shake. It was the same one, night after night. The one where he didn't make it out of here. The one where they threw him out like the worthless piece of trash they all thought he was. Garrett didn't give him a chance to even tie his boots before he spoke. "You think you're going to make it through, Marshall? Huh? You're not even fit to be here. You're a ghetto kid who couldn't even cut it in civilian life, let alone in the Army." The words stung, biting deep into Tyler's chest, but he didn't let it show. He just stared at the ground, teeth clenched, as the rest of the unit snickered behind their hands. "Too proud to speak now, huh? That's fine. I can't imagine what your mom would say, but I don't give a damn. You're here to learn discipline, but let me tell you something. You're the last one who'll ever make it." Garrett's voice was loud, almost like a weapon, piercing through the air. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the sound of Tyler's breath, slow and measured. Tyler wanted to shout back, wanted to say something, anything, but he knew better. You don't fight a battle you can't win. Not yet. Not in this world. So he stayed silent, letting the sting of the insult burn, feeling every eye in the room on him. It was the same thing every day, the same whispers, the same looks of disbelief when he tripped or couldn't do one more push-up. But today was different. Garrett had crossed a line, and it wasn't about strength anymore. It was about something deeper, something Tyler couldn't explain. After the inspection, Tyler was dismissed. He stood there frozen in place as the others marched off to the mess hall. One by one, they looked past him, but there was one pair of eyes that didn't. Private Jessica Knight, quiet as a shadow, caught his gaze. She didn't say a word, but for the first time, Tyler saw something in her eyes, a flicker of understanding. It was brief, a moment of solidarity that most wouldn't notice, but Tyler did. As the rest of the unit shuffled off, he took a deep breath and followed behind them, his boots heavier than they should have been. It was like they were weighing him down, dragging him deeper into the mud with every step. But Tyler didn't stop walking. He never stopped walking, not in the barracks, not in the field, and not in his head. The pain was a constant companion now, and he would carry it with him until it was no longer a weight, but a part of who he was. At breakfast, the clatter of trays and chatter filled the mess hall, but Tyler couldn't escape the noise in his head. Garrett's words repeated over and over like an endless loop. "You're not fit. You're not cut out for this." Tyler took his seat at the far end of the hall, alone, as always. He didn't mind the isolation. At least it kept the jokes and the insults at arm's length. The others took their places, cracking jokes, slapping each other on the back, like they were already part of something bigger. Tyler, on the other hand, had never felt so small. It wasn't just the others' laughter. It was the way they looked through him, like he didn't even exist. A tray of eggs slid in front of him, untouched. The smell of greasy bacon filled the air, but Tyler couldn't bring himself to eat. Instead, his eyes locked on his boots, polished, crisp, and standing at attention. They were the only thing he had control over right now, the only thing that wasn't judging him. A sudden noise interrupted his thoughts. One of the guys, Private Nick McAllister, the loudest of the bunch, slammed his tray down on the table next to him. "Hey, Marshall, you just gonna sit there like a ghost, or you gonna eat something? Thought you'd be used to being invisible by now." Tyler didn't look up. He didn't need to. But Nick was insistent. He leaned closer, dropping his voice so only Tyler could hear. "I heard Garrett talking about you. Think he might be right. You really think you can make it through this place?" The question hung in the air. A challenge. A dare. Tyler clenched his fists under the table, feeling the nails dig into his palm. He could have responded, could have thrown a comeback, made them laugh, showed them he was tougher than they thought. But Tyler didn't. He just stayed still, swallowing down the anger, swallowing down the fear. "Don't waste your time, McAllister," a voice interrupted. It was Jessica's voice, soft but sharp enough to break the tension. She had come up behind Nick, her tray in hand, and without looking at him, she slid it onto the table next to Tyler. "He's not here to play your games, so why don't you go find someone else to bother?" Nick glared at her for a second, but didn't say anything. He muttered something under his breath before he turned away, leaving Tyler alone again. The silence that followed wasn't much better, but Jessica's small act of defiance, standing up for him without a word, left something behind in Tyler, a spark. It wasn't much, but it was something. And as the morning drills began, Tyler thought about that spark, about how he would prove Garrett wrong, about how he would prove everyone wrong. But that would take time. Tyler knew the road wouldn't be easy. He knew the weight of his past, his accent, his background. Those things would follow him for as long as he was here. They would never let him forget that he wasn't one of them. But what he didn't know yet, what he couldn't see in this moment, was how much that quiet strength, the same strength that Jessica had noticed, would shape everything that came next. And as the call to formation sounded, Tyler stood tall. For the first time, he didn't feel so small. Not yet strong, not yet whole, but the journey was beginning. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The days dragged on, each one a little harder than the last. Tyler could feel it in his bones, the weight of everyone's eyes on him. He kept his head down, focused on the drills, doing his best to blend into the background. But no matter how hard he tried, it was impossible to escape the whispers, the looks, the way they seemed to wait for him to fail. And Garrett? Well, Garrett was always there, watching, making sure Tyler knew exactly where he stood, right at the bottom. It was 0600 when the bell rang for formation, and Tyler was already up, lacing his boots in the corner of the barracks. The others were still groggy, stumbling to get dressed, but Tyler moved with purpose. He didn't want to be the last one out there, didn't want to give them more ammunition. When he got to the field, Garrett was already barking orders. "Line up, you sorry excuses for soldiers." His voice cut through the air like a whip. Tyler joined the line, staying near the back as usual. It was the safest place. No one noticed you there. But Garrett did. His eyes scanned the line, settling on Tyler like a hawk picking out a rabbit. "Marshall," he spat, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're gonna do the push-up challenge today? Bet you can't do 50. Hell, you're barely good for 10. Tyler's heart sank, but he didn't flinch. His hands clenched at his sides, but he stayed quiet, staring straight ahead. He wasn't going to give Garrett the satisfaction of seeing him crack. The challenge started. One by one, the others dropped to the ground, hitting the floor with strength, with energy. Tyler started too, his arms shaking, but he pushed through it. He didn't care how much it hurt. He just had to make it to 50. He had to. "Come on, Marshall," Garrett's voice boomed. "I thought you were here to prove something, but all I see is a weak excuse for a soldier." Tyler's arms trembled as he hit 20. The sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes, but he kept going. There was a fire inside him now, a fire he hadn't even known was there. He could feel the eyes on him, the snickers, the judgments, but it didn't matter. He wouldn't stop. He couldn't. By the time he hit 30, his chest was on fire, his breath ragged, but he was still going. The others had finished, all of them standing around watching him. Nick McAllister, the loudmouth, was the first to speak up. "Hey, Marshall, you're gonna pass out or what? Maybe you should have stayed in the kitchen with the rest of your kind." The insult hit harder than any drill had, but Tyler didn't let it show. He kept going. 35, 36. Garrett was laughing now, a deep, mocking laugh. "What did I tell you? You're not cut out for this, Marshall. You'll never be one of us." But Tyler wasn't listening to him anymore. His mind was somewhere else, somewhere quiet. He could hear the steady beat of his heart, the rush of his breath. The world felt distant, like it was all happening through a thick fog. All that mattered was the next push-up, and the next one, and the one after that. He hit 40. His arms were shaking violently now, but he didn't stop. "Come on, Marshall," Garrett jeered. "You're making a fool of yourself. Just quit. You'll never make it." Tyler's body screamed for him to stop. His muscles burned, his joints ached. but he pushed through it. 45. 46. And then, just as he thought he might collapse, something inside him snapped. It wasn't the physical exhaustion anymore. It was something else, something that had been building up for weeks. The mocking, the doubts, the stares, it all came crashing down in that moment. With a final guttural grunt, Tyler pushed himself off the ground, his body trembling with effort. 50, he said, his voice low but firm, like a promise. The others were silent, staring at him, the mocking gone from their faces. Garrett stood there for a moment, his mouth slightly open. He had been so sure that Tyler would fail, so sure that Tyler wasn't good enough. But there he was, breathing heavily, but standing tall, staring Garrett down. Not bad, Marshall, Garrett said, his tone now laced with something else, something grudgingly respectful. But Tyler wasn't fooled. He could see the shift in Garrett's eyes. The sergeant had lost, and Tyler had won. But even as he felt the brief surge of victory, something nagged at him. He knew it wasn't over. Garrett would find another way to make him pay for this, another way to tear him down. And the rest of the guys, they weren't done either. They'd been watching. They'd seen him push through, but they didn't respect him. Not yet. That night, as Tyler lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, Jessica came over. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down on the edge of his bed. Her silence was comfortable, like it always was. She didn't have to speak to let him know she understood. "You did good today," she said after a long moment, her voice soft but steady. "You showed them something." Tyler turned his head, meeting her gaze. "It doesn't matter. They'll just find another way to knock me down." Jessica shook her head. "No, they won't. You're not the same anymore." Tyler wasn't sure what to say to that. Part of him still didn't believe it. He wasn't sure he could ever believe it, not until they stopped seeing him as the weak kid who didn't belong here. But something had shifted. He'd felt it when he finished the push-ups. That fire, that resolve, it was still burning inside him. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. The road ahead would be hard. He knew that. But he wasn't backing down anymore. Whatever Garrett threw at him next, whatever the guys said, Tyler was ready. And as the lights went out and the barracks fell into quiet, Tyler let out a long breath. Tomorrow would come. He'd face it, and he'd face it standing tall. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The days dragged on, each one harder than the last. Tyler was used to the looks, the sneers, the mocking voices, but there was something different now, something that felt like it was building up to something big. Maybe it was the way he'd pushed through the push-up challenge, or maybe it was the quiet recognition from Jessica. But whatever it was, he felt like the storm was coming. And this time, he wasn't going to be caught off guard. The tension in the barracks was palpable. Garrett had been watching him more closely lately, always with that same sneer on his face, as if he were waiting for Tyler to slip up. Tyler knew it was coming. Garrett would never let him get away with one victory. He'd find a way to bring him down. It was a few days after the push-up challenge, during the morning drills, when the real test came. The squad had been split into pairs for a simulated combat exercise. The objective was simple. One team would defend a position while the other attacked. Tyler was paired with McAllister, Nick McAllister, the guy who'd been taunting him from the start, the guy who couldn't let a single mistake slide without making it personal. "All right, Marshall," Nick said with a grin as they geared up. "Don't screw this up. You might finally prove you're good for something other than being a punching bag." Tyler ignored him, focusing on the task at hand. The rest of the squad had already formed their teams, but it was clear that Nick wasn't about to let this go without making it a spectacle. Tyler could feel the eyes on him as they made their way to the starting positions. There was no avoiding it now. The whole squad was watching, and Garrett was standing off to the side, arms crossed, waiting for his moment. "Get ready," the drill instructor barked. "Defenders, set up your position. Attackers, move out on my signal." Tyler took a deep breath. He wasn't about to let Nick's taunts get to him. This was his chance to prove himself. He'd been training for this, pushing through every grueling drill, every insult. It had all been leading to this moment. The signal sounded and the attack began. Tyler and Nick moved to their position, crouching low behind the barricade. Tyler's mind raced. He could hear the others moving in the distance, the crunch of boots on gravel, the crackling of radios. This wasn't just about the drill anymore. This was about showing them all that he belonged here, that he wasn't just the weak kid they'd laughed at. "Move up," Nick ordered, his voice sharp. He wasn't making this easy. Tyler moved with him, but every step felt heavier than the last. The weight of the moment was crushing. He could feel Nick's eyes on him, waiting for him to screw up, waiting for him to do something wrong. Tyler focused on the task, staying low, moving with purpose. They crept closer to the enemy's position. Then out of nowhere, a loud shot rang out. Nick ducked down instinctively and Tyler followed, adrenaline surging through him. He could feel the heat of the moment, the urgency. There was no room for mistakes now. Nick glanced over at Tyler, his eyes wide with excitement. "Don't freeze up now, Marshall," he sneered. "We don't need you holding us back." The words stung, but Tyler didn't let them show. Instead, he focused on the target ahead. They were getting close now. Too close. Tyler's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. This was his moment. Suddenly, an explosion rang out. It wasn't real, but it felt real enough. A grenade had gone off on the simulated battlefield, sending dust and debris flying. Nick was thrown off balance, losing his footing, and Tyler saw his opportunity. Without thinking, Tyler lunged forward, grabbing Nick and pulling him out of the line of fire. They tumbled to the ground, the weight of the action almost too much to bear. Tyler's chest heaved as he realized what he'd just done. He'd saved Nick, the same guy who'd taunted him, humiliated him, the same guy who thought he was weak. As they lay there panting, Tyler could hear the others moving in. The attack had failed. The defenders had won. Tyler had done what they hadn't expected. He'd kept his head when it counted. But as the smoke cleared, all Tyler could focus on was Nick, who had fallen silent. "Get up, McAllister," Tyler said, his voice low but firm. "We've got to finish this." Nick didn't move. Instead, he looked up at Tyler, his face pale. For a moment, Tyler thought he might be hurt. But then Nick's expression changed. He looked confused, almost vulnerable. "You," Nick started, his voice shaky. "You saved me." The words hung in the air. Tyler didn't know how to respond. He was still too stunned by the whole thing, by the way everything had flipped in an instant. Just moments ago, Nick had been the one taunting him, belittling him, and now Tyler had been the one to save him. It didn't make sense. Before Tyler could say anything, Garrett's voice cut through the silence. "All right, enough. Stand down." The squad gathered around, their eyes on Tyler. Garrett stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Tyler stood up, wiping the dirt from his uniform. His chest was still tight from the adrenaline, but he felt a strange calm now. He had done what they didn't think he could. "Good job, Marshall," Garrett said, his voice unexpectedly neutral. "You saved McAllister. Not bad for a recruit who can't do 10 push-ups." Tyler didn't respond. He just stood there, his body still shaking, his mind racing. He'd done it. He had proven himself in a way no one expected. But the real shock came when Garrett turned to the rest of the squad. "Listen up," Garrett barked. "This isn't just about training. This is about survival. Marshall just showed you what it means to have each other's backs. You may think you're better than him, but I want you to remember what happened today, because you never know when someone you've been underestimating will turn the tide." Tyler's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected this. Garrett, the man who'd been so quick to tear him down, was now giving him credit. And the rest of the squad, McAllister included, were watching him differently. It wasn't just that Tyler had saved Nick. It was that he had earned their respect in a way that words could never have done. But even as the squad dispersed and the mission wrapped up, Tyler felt the weight of what had happened. This wasn't the end of it. He knew that. The fight wasn't over. The road ahead was still long, still full of obstacles. But for the first time, Tyler felt like he was finally starting to belong. And as he walked back to the barracks, his thoughts were interrupted by Jessica's voice, soft but steady. "You did good today, Tyler," she said. "You really did." Tyler turned to her, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. "Thanks, Jessica. I couldn't have done it without you." Jessica gave him a small, knowing nod, but she didn't say anything more. She didn't have to. The journey wasn't over. But Tyler knew one thing for sure. He wasn't backing down anymore. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. It was a week after the combat exercise and Tyler could feel the shift. There was something different in the air. The way his squad looked at him, the way Garrett held his gaze just a moment longer than usual. The whispers had started to fade, but Tyler knew better than to think it was over. He could feel the storm brewing. They had been pushing him hard in training lately, harder than ever before. Runs, extra drills, the worst jobs in the barracks. All of it. And with every task, every punishment. Tyler knew it wasn't just about making him a better soldier. It was about testing him, about breaking him. And Garrett was right there, pushing him harder than anyone else. He was the one who always had something sharp to say, always making sure that Tyler felt the weight of every failure. But Tyler didn't break. Not this time. The insults and pressure only made him stronger, the quiet resolve building inside him with every drop of sweat. It was on a rainy morning when it all came to a head. The drill was simple enough. Storm the obstacle course, clear the path, and get to the end as fast as possible. No problem. But it wasn't the obstacle course that made Tyler nervous. It was the way Garrett had been watching him. "Marshal," Garrett barked, his eyes narrowing. "You're up first. Show the squad how it's done. Let's see if you've learned anything." Tyler nodded, his heart pounding. It was the same thing every time. The challenge wasn't the physical part. It was the mental game. Garrett had a way of making him feel like every mistake was a failure that would define him. Tyler couldn't afford to mess up. As he stepped up to the starting line, he could feel every eye on him. The squad stood along the sidelines, their expressions unreadable. Even Jessica, who had always quietly supported him, was standing back this time. Tyler was on his own. The gunshot rang out, and Tyler was off. He sprinted through the rain, his boots slipping on the wet ground. But he pushed through. The ropes, the walls, the muddy trenches. He didn't stop, not once. His breath came in heavy gasps, but his body moved on autopilot, each movement fueled by everything he'd been through up until now. Then came the wall, a 10-foot vertical climb that had always been the point where the others lost their momentum. Tyler had failed it more times than he cared to admit. But this time, something inside him snapped. He was done with being the joke, done with being the weak link. He reached up, his hands finding the top, and pulled himself over. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. He was over. The squad was watching now. McAllister, Garrett, even the instructors. And Tyler didn't slow down. He didn't stop until he was at the end, panting, covered in mud, but standing tall. The timer buzzed. Tyler's breath was heavy, his body aching, but he didn't care. He had made it. Garrett stepped forward, his face unreadable. For a moment, there was silence. Tyler looked at him, waiting for the ridicule, the mockery. It always came after a victory like this. Always. Instead, Garrett's lips twitched. "Not bad, Marshal. Not bad at all." For a moment, Tyler didn't know how to react. The words hung in the air, but something didn't feel right. Garrett didn't look pleased. He looked uncomfortable. The rest of the squad slowly started to clap. Reluctantly at first, then with more force. Tyler could feel the shift. They weren't just clapping for him. They were clapping for the fact that he had done something they didn't expect. But there was more. There was something in their eyes now. A respect, maybe. Or just the realization that Tyler wasn't going anywhere. But just as Tyler allowed himself to feel the brief satisfaction, something changed. Garrett's voice rang out, cold and sharp. "All right, everyone gather up. We've got one more test today." Tyler's stomach dropped. He'd already done the hardest part. What more could Garrett want? The squad assembled, confused, glancing at each other. Garrett stood in front of them, his posture rigid. But there was something about him that made Tyler uneasy. The smugness was gone. In its place was something colder, something more calculating. "Today's final test," Garrett began, "isn't about speed or strength. It's about loyalty. It's about knowing who's got your back when the chips are down." Tyler frowned, his heart beating a little faster. There was something wrong about the way Garrett said that, something in his eyes. We're going to pair up, Garrett continued, and the test is simple. One of you will be the attacker. One of you will be the defender. The attacker's job is to take out the defender. The defender's job is to survive. No rules. Do whatever it takes. The attacker will have the upper hand. The defender has to stay alive. Tyler's stomach twisted. This was a team exercise. This wasn't supposed to be about putting anyone at risk. They'd all been through enough together. But as Garrett's eyes scanned the squad, Tyler saw the shift. The moment the drill instructor made his decision, it hit like a hammer. McAllister, you're the attacker. Marshall, you're the defender. The room went dead silent. Tyler froze, staring at Garrett. He couldn't believe it. What the hell? Nick's voice broke the silence. You've got to be kidding me. Shut it, McAllister, Garrett snapped. This is the test. I want to see who's really got the grit to make it through. You don't like it, you can quit. Tyler's mind raced. This wasn't a drill anymore. This wasn't about teamwork. This was about humiliation. Garrett had chosen McAllister because he knew what it would do to Tyler. He knew McAllister hated him. He knew this would force Tyler to either break or fight back, and he was betting on Tyler breaking. Nick smirked, his eyes already sizing Tyler up. You're going to regret this, Marshall. I'm going to tear you apart. Tyler didn't speak. He couldn't. All he could do was prepare for what was coming. The whistle blew and Nick was on him, faster than Tyler could react. Every blow, every shove felt like a punch to his soul. Nick wasn't holding back. He was throwing everything he had into this, and Tyler couldn't keep up. But then something clicked inside Tyler. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. This was about proving something. To Garrett, to Nick, to himself. With a roar, Tyler surged forward, throwing Nick off balance for the first time. The shock on Nick's face was priceless. Tyler's fist connected with his chest, knocking him back. The squad was silent, watching, waiting. Then as Nick stumbled, Tyler did something he hadn't done before. He stood tall. He wasn't the weak recruit anymore. He was a soldier. Garrett's face twisted with anger, but for the first time, Tyler didn't care. He'd passed the test. Nick got back up, breathless. You think you've won, huh? Tyler didn't respond. He just stood there looking at Garrett. The instructor's jaw tightened. There was no more mockery, no more sneers. He knew Tyler had just turned the table on him. The squad stood still, watching, waiting for Garrett's next move. But Garrett didn't say a word. He just nodded. It was the first time Tyler had ever seen him truly silent. And for the first time, Tyler knew he wasn't the underdog anymore. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The days after the final test were quiet, too quiet. Tyler could feel the change, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It wasn't just the respect he'd earned from the squad or the grudging acknowledgement from Garrett. It was something deeper, something unspoken. But Tyler wasn't one to dwell on it. He had a mission now, to keep his head down, do his job, and prove that he belonged. Even as the rest of the squad went on with their drills, Tyler noticed how Garrett kept a distance. At first, Tyler thought it was because Garrett was angry, that he still couldn't accept how everything had turned out. But as the days wore on, it became clear that Garrett was no longer the biggest obstacle. It was the night before the final evaluation, when everything changed. The barracks were as noisy as usual, the usual banter and jokes flying. Tyler lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the journey so far, the ups and downs, the failures, the victories. But something felt off. There was tension in the air. Garrett had been acting strange, and the quiet looks from the rest of the squad were starting to feel like something more. Tyler was so close to proving himself, so close to earning his place in the team. He couldn't afford to let his guard down now. Then out of nowhere, the door to the barracks slammed open. It was Garrett, his face flushed with anger, and behind him, McAllister. Tyler's heart skipped. They weren't just here to discuss drills. Something was wrong. You! Garrett's voice cut through the chatter. Marshall, get up. You've got a lesson to learn. Tyler stood up slowly, confusion swirling in his gut. What's this about, Sergeant? Garrett didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed Tyler's arm, pulling him out into the cold night air. McAllister followed, looking like he was barely holding it together. What the hell is going on? Tyler muttered, his thoughts racing. We've had enough of you, Marshal, Garrett snapped. Think you're untouchable now? Think you've earned your place? His words hit harder than any punch. Tyler's stomach turned. You've done well. Too well. You've earned some respect, Garrett went on, his tone dark. But that's where it ends. You've gotten too cocky, and cocky soldiers don't last long in this unit. Tyler's heart pounded. He'd been waiting for this. The moment when the respect he'd earned turned into something else. Something darker. But what was coming next? Tyler couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything he'd been through. Suddenly Garrett's voice softened, almost mockingly. We're going to have a little test, Marshal. You wanted to prove yourself? Prove it again. He turned to McAllister. You're going to face off. You've been given a lot of chances, Marshal. This time, I'm not making it easy on you. McAllister, attack. No holds barred. Let's see if you really belong here. The realization hit Tyler like a freight train. Garrett wasn't testing him anymore. He was breaking him. Tyler's chest tightened. He looked at McAllister, who stood there, fists clenched, looking like he was ready to finish this once and for all. Get ready, Garrett barked. This is the final test. Fight or fall. Your call. Tyler's mind raced. McAllister had been waiting for this. For a moment, Tyler considered walking away, refusing to play their game. But he couldn't. He'd fought too hard to back down now. He didn't care what Garrett's game was. He wasn't going to lose again. McAllister rushed forward, his fist connecting with Tyler's jaw. The hit was hard, knocking Tyler to the ground. But it didn't matter. He was used to pain by now. Tyler shook it off, getting back on his feet. The fight wasn't about strength anymore. It was about survival. And in that moment, Tyler remembered everything that had brought him here. The mocking words, the taunts, the sweat, the insults. It all led to this. Tyler pushed back, dodging a punch and landing one of his own. He could see the surprise in McAllister's eyes. McAllister had expected him to fold, but Tyler wasn't folding. You're not going to win this, McAllister gritted through clenched teeth. You're nothing. You're a joke. Tyler shook his head, not even letting the words sink in. He wasn't the same person who had walked in here months ago, the weak kid who couldn't even handle a push-up challenge. He was different now, stronger. And it wasn't just about physical strength. It was about the strength to keep fighting when everyone expected you to quit. Finally, Tyler landed a punch that sent McAllister stumbling back. Garrett was silent now, watching the fight unfold with a cold, detached expression. The squad had gathered around, their eyes glued to the scene. This wasn't just about Tyler and McAllister anymore. It was about proving that Tyler had earned his place, that he wasn't going anywhere. McAllister wiped blood from his lip, breathing heavily. He looked at Garrett, then back at Tyler, his expression shifting. It wasn't the same arrogance or hatred anymore. There was something else, something close to respect. And then, as if on cue, Garrett stepped forward. Enough, he said, his voice low. You both proved something today. But this isn't over. Not for you, Marshal. You earned your respect, but we'll see if you can keep it. Tyler stood there, his body aching, his breath ragged. But something inside him had changed. He wasn't the joke anymore. He wasn't the underdog. He had fought for this moment, and now he was standing in it. The squad slowly started to disperse, the murmurs fading. Tyler caught Jessica's eye from across the yard. She didn't say anything, but the look in her eyes spoke volumes. She knew. Garrett turned to walk away, but before he did, he looked over his shoulder, his face a mixture of grudging acknowledgement and defeat. You've earned your place, Marshal, but don't think for a second that this is over. We'll see how far you can go. Tyler didn't respond. He didn't have to. He'd already proven what needed proving. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The wind whipped through the courtyard, carrying with it the distant sound of the American flag snapping in the breeze. Tyler stood there, beneath its vast presence, eyes steady, looking out at the horizon. His uniform was worn, his body bruised, but in this moment, none of that mattered. The flag above him didn't just represent the country. It represented everything he had fought for. Dignity, respect, and the chance to stand on his own 2 feet. Behind him, the squad had gathered. One by one, they walked past, offering a small nod of respect. A gesture so simple, yet so powerful. It wasn't the loud, boisterous applause of victory. It was quieter, more meaningful. They didn't need to say anything. They understood now. Garrett, too, walked by, his steps slow, his gaze holding a kind of reluctant respect. No words were exchanged, but in the silence, Tyler could feel it. He had earned his place. Not through the fights, not through the words, but through his actions. As the squad dispersed, Tyler stayed for a moment longer, letting the weight of the day settle in. The battle had been fought, and it wasn't just for a place in this unit. It was for his place in the world, for his right to be seen, to be heard. What had once seemed impossible, the prejudice, the ridicule, the doubts, had all been shattered through sheer resilience, brotherhood, and the strength of his character. In life, as in the military, you learn that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's the hard days, the ones that challenge you to the core, that teach you who you really are. And that's the lesson here. No matter where you come from, no matter how many people doubt you, your actions will speak louder than words ever could. If this story resonates with you, I invite you to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Let's continue this conversation. Hit that like button to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, thought-provoking stories. Together we stand strong, brothers and sisters in arms, no matter where life takes us. Stay strong and carry on.